Hey, welcome back to 65 Drums. My name's Justin. Today I want to talk about my favorite electronic drums in the entire industry. We'll start off on the cheap end with $380 and then slowly work our way up to $9,000. But first, today's video is brought to you by Edrumcenter.com. If you're in the market for a new or used electronic drum set, go check out Edrumcenter. They've got a great selection of premium electronic drums. They also offer a ton of great accessories. If you want to get a better snare drum, a second crash, or even a nice pair of headphones, they got you covered there as well. Use my custom link in the description below to save $25 off your next order of over $100. Now, before we jump ahead into my list, I just want to mention a couple of things. Number one, I'm not trying to push anybody to spend more and more money and then waste their entire life savings. No matter what drum set you buy, there's always going to be a bigger and better drum set. Pick a drum set price range that you're comfortable with, and then just pick the best drum set that suits your needs within that price range. And also check out the used market, and if you can't find anything on the used market, then buy a new drum set. Okay, so let's start off with the cheapest drums first, and then work our way up in price. So the least amount of money I would spend on an electronic drum set right now is probably $380. So my pick right now is the Simmons Titan 50. This has replaced the Alesis Nitro Mesh as my go-to beginner option, just because I feel like this module is better. Now, the Alesis Nitro is also a good drum set. They even have like very similar sizes and all that. It's just the module that tipped it in favor of Simmons, in my opinion. And also, just like the Alesis drum set, they offer an expansion pack. So if you want, you can get a fourth tom and a second crash cymbal and expand your drum set that way. But of course, the more money you spend, the better of a drum set that you'll get. So the second drum set on my list is going to be the Roland TD-07 DMK. Currently, this is selling for $700, but I think the standard everyday price will be $800 once the sale ends. Now, on paper, these two drum sets do look fairly similar because the sizes are pretty much equivalent. But the big difference here is the overall quality of the complete package. So the Roland TD-07 DMK will give you a better drum module, more editing features, and the quality of the pads, I'm going to trust the Roland one a little bit more than the Simmons one. Okay, so bumping up to $1,000, this is going to be a little bit trickier because I'm going to give you a bunch of different options at the exact same price. So number one, we got the Simmons SD1250. Number two, we've got the Cat Percussion KT300. And number three, we've got the Roland TD-17 KV. Now, a quick note about that TD-17 KV, it's not normally sold for $1,000. They're just trying to get rid of it because this drum set is no longer being produced. It has been replaced by other drums. So they're just lowering the price until eventually they're out of stock 6 months from now or whenever that may be. So this is going to be a temporary option. So we've got three drum sets for $1,000. How do you pick the one that best suits you? Really, it sort of comes down to whether or not you think the module or the size of the pads is the most important thing. You need to choose your own priority that you're going to shoot towards. The Simmons kit is the largest $1,000 drum set on the market, at least in North America. Cat Percussion is a bit smaller, but you still get 2 crashes and a 3-zone ride. And the Roland drum set gives you the least amount of components, and it only has a 2-zone ride instead of a 3-zone. So if your main priority is just getting a big drum set, then the Simmons drum set is probably the one for you. When it comes to drum modules, if you care about that more, it runs the complete opposite way. The Roland drum set has by far the best drum module with decent drum sounds and very accurate triggering. Cat Percussion is more middle of the pack, and the Simmons drum module is pretty poor quality, even though it looks impressive on paper. The thing that really bothers me about the Simmons drum module, aside from the poor quality sounds, is that there's no rim head adjustment inside of the trigger settings. And so because of that, I haven't been able to fix a problem where it will trigger a rim sound instead of a drum head sound sometimes. But as you probably noticed, every single $1,000 drum set has an Achilles heel of some kind. The Roland drum set doesn't have a 3-zone ride cymbal, the Simmons drum set doesn't have the best trigger quality or the best sounds, and the Cat Percussion drum set doesn't really have a strength in any particular area, it's just kind of average at everything. So decide what your priorities are and just go from there. Okay, so moving ahead to the next price point, we have $1,500. My pick right now is the Roland TD-17 KVX. Just like the TD-17 KV, this drum set has been replaced by the TD-17 KVX2, so it is now being dropped in price so they can get rid of it from all the stores, and so people buy the new and improved version. There are some minor differences between these two drum sets that I talked about in my news video when it first launched, but one of those differences was that the module had a new update on the V2 version. Well, they actually brought that as a free update to the older modules as well. So if you don't really care about the pad differences, you just care about the modules, well, they are both now identical if you get the software update from the Roland website. So yeah, this is a good buy at $1,500. I highly recommend it. I used to own a TD17 because after the TD17 launch event, I eventually wanted to pick one up and make some videos about it. So I found a guy on Facebook Marketplace that was selling his for like $1,000. I bought it off of him and then I made a bunch of videos with it. I did notice a little bit later on that the hi-hat was not acting right, so that part was faulty. But after I individually sold every single part of that TD17, I actually made all my money back and more, even though the hi-hat stopped working. Okay, so the next price range I want to talk about is that area right below $3,000. This is a value sweet spot. You get a lot of bang for your buck if you spend this amount of money, just like around the $1,000 range. So the first drum set you got to mention is the Elisa Strike Pro SE. Now, talking about this drum set is a very complicated thing because people take very extreme sides whenever this drum set is brought up in conversation. Some people think that this is like the savior of the entire electronic drum market, like it's this shining beacon. And then other people think it's hot garbage and everybody should just avoid it at all costs. I take a more cautious, middle-of-the-road approach with this drum set myself. As long as you're aware of what you're getting into when you buy this drum set, and as long as you buy it for the right purpose, this can be an amazing value. You get a ton of drums, a ton of cymbals, and the module has some surprisingly good sounds built in. Now, as far as common complaints about this drum set, a lot of people don't like the hi-hat and then sometimes the ride cymbal. I've actually talked to one music store who said that they've sold a lot of VH10s or VH11s to Alesis owners just because they wanted a higher quality hi-hat. This has always been a little bit confusing to me because whenever I play an Elisa Strike Pro SE, I don't see a big problem with their hi-hats if they're set up correctly, but a lot of people just don't like them, so they replace them with other manufacturers' hi-hats. Also in the past, Elisa Strike drum sets have had a famous issue of their trigger plates cracking in half on the snare drum. I don't know how big of a problem that is on this new iteration, but I haven't heard as much chatter about it as I did on the older regular version of the Elisa Strike Pro. So knowing all of that, my personal take about this kit and who it might be best for, I think it's great for people that want a large practice drum set for their house. And they don't care about it being bleeding edge. They just want a large electronic drum set that doesn't break the bank and has decent sounds built in. This drum set could be for you. I would not buy this as a house kit for a venue that has, untold number of people wailing on a kit for years in a row. But for a practice kit at home that's really large and has surprisingly good sounds, the Elisa Strike Pro SE is pretty good. Now going up in price just a little bit, we have the Yamaha DTX 8K Mesh for $2,800. So as you probably know, Yamaha recently released 3 different lines of electronic drums, the DTX 6, the DTX 8, and the DTX 10. All these drum sets with the different drum head options and different shell color options. Out of all of them, I feel like the DTX 8 is the one I would shoot for if you want to jump into the Yamaha ecosystem. The DTX 8 has enough of the flagship features to make it fun without having to pay the flagship price. Although I still think it should be a little bit lower in price than it is right now because I hear that it's just not selling as well as it could be. That doesn't take away from the fact though that it's a good drum set that is worth looking into, especially if you ever see it on sale. And the final drum set under $3,000 is the F-Note 3X. F-Note is one of those companies that came out of nowhere because it's a bunch of ex-employees from ATV. So what you get with this drum set is a set of very nice drums, very nice cymbals, and a very simple drum module that just works. Yeah, this drum set is not as flashy as the Elisa Strike, and it doesn't have, the name of Yamaha behind it. But as an overall drum set, it is very solid. It just does everything really well. It has by far the best hi-hats you can get at this price range. The 2-piece optical hi-hats that are 14 inches across, they work really, really well. It also has an 18-inch 3-zone ride cymbal that feels fantastic to play on. Also, the tracking of all the drums, it triggers very well. And it has a dedicated extra rim zone, so you don't have to press a stupid mode button on the module. It just knows when you want to play rim shot or cross stick because there's an extra raised rim. The weakness of this drum set is that, the module is fairly limited. If you want to play hard rock songs, you would probably want to use drum plugins with this drum set. But as an overall package, this thing is very solid, it's intuitive, it's easy to use, it's just not very flashy. Now moving up in price to $3,500, we have the TD27 KV2. This drum set is fantastic. It takes all the strengths of the regular TD27 KV and then adds the digital hi-hats as its main primary upgrade, along with the module firmware upgrade and maybe a couple of other differences here and there on top of that. Going from a VH11 over to a VH14D is a massive upgrade. These new hi-hats, they just perform better and they feel more realistic. The TD27 drum module is also very, very advanced. So many editing options, you're probably not even going to touch half of them. Now moving up to $3,800, we have the F-Note 5X. Now this drum set isn't necessarily better than the Roland TD27 KV2, it's just an alternative for people that care more about the overall aesthetic of the drum set and getting a more acoustic-like experience. The cymbals are all great, the drums track really well, and the module is a much simpler, more low-key experience than the TD27 drum module. You're buying this more for the aesthetics, not necessarily because it's bleeding edge at any particular thing. But of course, they're keeping the shell sizes down because of the price range that it's at. If you want full acoustic sizes from F-Note, then you would probably want to look at the F-Note 7X. This comes in at $5,200 and offers basically all the same stuff the 5X does, but at larger shell sizes. It also offers this really cool ozone looking crash that is really fun to play on. Now, I would still personally use it with Superior Drummer 3 because the sounds aren't quite on the level of like a Pearl Mimic or a TD50X, but still, it is a fun drum set, really worth looking into if you want a simple electronic drum set that just works and looks and feels acoustic-like. Moving ahead to the next drum set, we've got the Roland VAD 507. This drum set kind of peaks at the Roland value proposition limit. Yes, you can spend an extra $3,600 and get the very top of the line drum set, but if you just want like the best that Roland has to offer in 90% of the categories, this drum set hits all of those marks. And then of course, for the people out there that have a truly unlimited budget, money is no issue. Believe me, those people do exist. I've talked to them. I'm not one of them, but I've talked to people like that. You can go buy the Roland VAD 706. The big upgrade here from the VAD 507 is probably just going to be the TD50X module. Yeah, there are some other differences, but really at the end of the day, you're buying this drum set for the better drum module and a different paint job. This drum set is incredibly fun to play. Not fun enough to play that I will go and drop this amount of money on the drum set, but it is an incredibly fun drum set to play on. Okay, so that wraps up my list of my favorite electronic drums currently being sold right now. Let me know your list down in the comments below. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot different than mine, but again, this is why it's fun to talk about this stuff. We can all have different opinions about the exact same gear. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it, and have an awesome day.